Okay guys, so welcome to yet another Curado MGL 150 video. Now in the previous video I had this reel in. I did a cast comparison between this reel and the 200K, casting your average half-ounce topwater lure, and in my opinion it did best the 200K by a few feet, at least visually. But the good news is, it still had plenty of line left on the spool. Now this time around in this video, we're going to be comparing the light lure capabilities of the new MGL 150 against the other Curado MGL, the 70. Now before we get into this, I just wanted to say that this reel has been out for over a year now, and I haven't really featured it in a lot of videos. In fact, the last time I did put this in a video, I think it was almost a year ago, where it went up against the new 2020 TATULA SV in a cast battle. Now the plan was to take this new MGL 70 and do a cast comparison between it and the old 70 to see if there was any kind of real justification for the big price increase in the new reel versus the old. But this is what happened. Now even though the MGL 70 beat the TATULA SV in the cast battle, in my opinion, it felt very, I guess you would say, tight and restricted. Felt like I needed to break this reel in a little bit more before I put it up against my old 70, which I've had since it's come out, and it is well broken in. In fact, it was like my primary jerkbait reel for almost 2 years. So I didn't think it'd be fair to do a cast comparison between a, fresh reel out of the box that's still really tight versus a well broken in reel. So what I did was I took the new MGL 70 on a couple of fishing trips here and there, caught a couple of fish, but it seemed to me that the spool wasn't getting any faster. But then I realized something. Now the old 70 was known to be a somewhat finicky reel. It had an extremely fast spool that could get out of hand at a moment's notice. So maybe Shimano did something purposely to the new MGL 70 to tame that spool. But long story short, I never got around to making that video, but it's a moot point because the old 70 has long been discontinued. So here we are today comparing it against a reel that could very well mean the death of the 70 MGL. That of course is the 150 MGL. Now both of these reels have the same diameter spool and they weigh virtually the same. I think the 70 spool weighs about 1/10 of a gram less than the 150, so we're talking high 12 grams for both spools. But of course the 150 holds more line, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a picture up on the screen for you guys and show you the weights of these spools once filled with line, and you can see that the full spool weight of the MGL 150 is about 3.3 grams heavier than the 70. Now will that translate into a performance gap between these two out on the water when handling light lures? We're going to find out, because I already took both of these reels out and did both casting and pitching comparison. Now before we get into that footage though, let me show you guys the rods that I used for this comparison. Now about a year or so ago, I saw the rise in popularity of finesse bait casters, and I'm not talking just bait finesse, I'm talking finesse bait casters in general. So I knew I needed to buy a couple of rods to do these finesse bait caster comparisons, and these are the rods that I bought. Now these are straight from AliExpress. They are called MEGABASS, and the specs for these rods are this. They're both 6'6" mediums, 2 pieces, line weight 8 to 16 pounds, lure weight 6 to 21 grams. So in my opinion, I would call these medium light. And these are the rods I'm going to be using for any kind of future finesse bait caster comparisons that are not full-blown BFS. So anyway, the first thing I did was I did a casting comparison, and I spooled both reels up with 10-pound mono as usual. And let me show you what happened. Alright guys, so up first is going to be the 70 MGL, and we are throwing a Lucky Craft Gunfish 75, I believe, and it weighs somewhere between I think 5 and 6 grams. But with the Curado 70 MGL, I was able to go as low as 2 brakes on inside, external dial set to about 3.5. And let me show you what this reel can do with the smaller finesse topwater. We'll do about 10 casts and then we'll switch up to the 150. cast right there. That cast is probably going 40 yards. Okay, so I think I did about 10 casts with the 70 MGL, and on the best cast, I think I was probably approaching 40 yards with this tiny Lucky Craft Gunfish 75. So let's try out the MGL 150 now. Okay, MGL 150's turn. I dialed the reel in off camera. We got the same Lucky Craft Gunfish 75, just a different color. Here we go. I'll do about 10 casts with the MGL 150. And then we'll switch over to, I guess, a pitching comparison. Okay, wow, right there, looks like we're probably equaling the distance of the MGL 70, and the 150 feels smoother to cast. I don't feel as much vibration coming through the frame. Now it seems to me that the 150 is more consistent with its distance than the 70. It seems to be hitting right at the same spot on every cast, probably within a couple of feet. But yeah, it looks like I'm probably getting close to 40 yards with the MGL 150. Now granted, this is perfect conditions right now. If there was just even a little bit of wind, since I've pretty much maxed out the external brake setting on the 150, I probably have to go in and turn on one more brake, and that would definitely cut down some distance. Now versus the 170, I had probably almost half the brake dial play with as far as giving it some adjustment. All right, we'll do 3 more. Ooh, that one was kind of short, but that's all a part of casting. Okay, last cast for the 150. All right, so once again, very, very consistent distance. Ooh, man, I almost had a blow up there. I think there's a bass chasing. Yep, I saw a little bass chasing. I actually might be able to get a topwater bite. Let's see if I can coax one of these bass into biting. They seem to be chasing when the bait is going across the water really, really fast. Okay, so based on that footage, I want you guys to comment in the comment section which reel you thought was casting that Lucky Craft Gunfish 75 farther. Now the brake settings were pretty similar for both reels. Spool tension was just set to minimize the side-to-side play and backed off just a hair. 2 brakes on inside for both. 6 on the external dial for the MGL 150. Anything lower than that would blow the spool up. And with the 70, I actually could go a little bit lower on the external dial to about, I think, 3.5. So there was some braking power in reserve for the 70. Now next up, I did a pitching comparison, and I just want to tell you guys I switched the, I guess, GoPro viewing angle from super wide to narrow. That way you could see the target better, but it might look a little bit funny compared to, I guess, my normal GoPro footage. But the main objective was to see if the MGL 150 could keep up with the 70 when it came to pitching light lures, and more specifically low trajectory pitches with accuracy. So let me show you guys that footage. Okay guys, so now we are doing the pitching portion of this comparison, and basically the goal of this comparison is to not really pitch for distance, because of course, you know, I can just whip an underhand cast as hard as I can and, you know, probably get a good 30 to 40 yard pitch. But what I'm looking for is distance combined with ease of pitching, basically how much effort it took to pitch that distance. But I'm also looking for low trajectory, so no big, you know, rainbow underhand pitches that when your lure hits the water it just makes a big splash. Now the lure that I'm going to be pitching, it's going to be the Strike King Bitsy Bug Mini Jig, 3/16 ounce and no trailer. So right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave both of the reels with 2 brakes on inside and just use the external dial for fine tuning. And I've chosen a target, and you guys probably can't see it, but there's a little stump poking out of the water probably about 40 feet away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hit that stump with each pitch, and we're going to start off with the MGL 150. So here we go. All right, I hit the stump right there on the first pitch. Oh, all right, so I stopped that pitch with my thumb because it was heading towards a really high trajectory and it fell way short of the stump by a couple of feet. All right, that was short of the stump by about a couple of feet. All right, I just hit the stump right there. Still a fairly low trajectory pitch. All right, it was way off, past the stump by a couple of feet and off to the right. You guys probably saw that. Okay, that went behind the stump by about 6 inches, but that was a kind of a high trajectory pitch. Okay, so that was probably a foot short of the stump, off to the right. Okay, so that went behind the stump by about a foot, and now I'm hung up. Okay, we'll do about 3 more pitches with the 150, then switch over. Okay, so that was about a foot to the right of the stump. Okay, so that went behind the stump by about a foot. Wow, that was way short. Trying to get a low trajectory. There we go. Hit right at the base of the stump on that one. All right, I'll give you guys a couple more with the 150. That was about a foot short of the stump. Okay, so that was a high trajectory pitch. It hit about 3 inches right behind the stump. Boom, right there. I hit the stump dead on, low trajectory pitch. Now, of course, anyone who is more skilled at pitching and does it a lot, and you got that muscle memory, will be able to hit this stump consistently. And hopefully, I'm not gonna break this jig off. There we go. Okay, so let's go to the 70. Okay, so Curado MGL 70's turn. Once again, I believe 2 brakes on inside. I got 3 on the external dial. Same jig. And let's start pitching. All right, so that hit about 6 inches to the side of the stump. Ooh, that was a couple of feet short. That was my fault. Holy shit. I'm gonna be throwing a jerkbait as soon as I'm done with these pitches. So that was way off behind the stump to the left because the trajectory was really high. And that was about 5 inches to the right of the stump, but that was also a high trajectory pitch. That was right on the money, but that was a somewhat high trajectory pitch. There we go, right in front of the stump by about a couple of inches, low trajectory pitch. That was a little short by a couple of feet. Okay, that hit the stump right at the base, somewhat of a low trajectory pitch. Now, of course, low trajectory pitches are not completely necessary. That was about 6 inches short. Okay, that was off behind the stump, a little to the right. But the thing about low trajectory, it's much more of a finesse presentation. There we go. Low trajectory, about an inch in front of the base of the stump. All right, that was kind of a high trajectory, about 5 inches behind the stump. Oh, that was a bad pitch on my end. Okay, that was right beside the stump, kind of to the back of it. We'll do a couple more. So that was about 5 inches in front of the stump. There we go, right beside the stump. And I think I just hooked myself. Okay, one more pitch, one more. Okay, that was really high trajectory, so one more. There we go. All right, guys, let's go back home and go over my thoughts.
So now that you've seen that pitching footage, which reel do you think pitched better? And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. When it came down to casting and pitching these two specific lures, I saw no difference between the two. So that slight 3.5 gram weight advantage for the 70 didn't appear to help it out in either test versus the MGL 150. Now I bring this up because the JDM Scorpion MGL 150 definitely pitches farther with the same amount of effort than the Curado 200K. Now the spools for both of those reels, when filled with line, come out to about a 5.5 gram difference. And granted, I was pitching a heavier lure at the time, but with the same amount of effort, the Scorpion pitched a few feet farther than the Curado. So maybe going to a really light lure, something like 1/8 of an ounce, you may see some kind of a difference between the two. But if you're going down that low, you might as well be using the Curado BFS. So there we go, guys. Visually, I didn't see any difference between the two in casting or pitching or ease of pitching. Maybe if I took them both out on the casting field, it would show us something different. But what I was showing you today was pretty much real world fishing conditions. So it seems to reaffirm the statement that I made that this new MGL 150 just might be the best all-around Curado ever made. It's got the line capacity of the 200, but then it's got the finesse capabilities of the 70 for $30 less. So it kind of makes you wonder what the fate of the 70 is going to be. Is it going to go away? Or is Shimano going to drop the spool capacity to maybe a 50 to gain a little bit more separation between these two models? But for anyone who is looking for either of these two reels, the better all-around option, at least in my opinion and experience, is going to be this 150. Now the next time you see the 150, it's going to be out on the casting field, and you're just going to have to wait to find out who it's going to be battling against. Alright guys, thanks a lot.